Tatakae Dragon, or Fight Dragon, is a 1974 martial arts action-adventure crime series, bit of a mouthful there, starring Yasuaki Kurata that ran for 26 episodes and just might be the most obscure thing I discuss on this here channel. The 60s and 70s are, of course, positively sodden with cult action series. You can't throw a proverbial javelin without hitting some one-off tokusatsu show or cowboy action show or sci-fi adventure miniseries, but even among that number, Fight Dragon is pretty roundly forgotten. It has almost no presence online. Looking it up on YouTube shows clips of the opening and ending and what I think is a movie made from the first few episodes, and its only DVD release is this rather cheap one from around 2010 that I found browsing an FYE when I was in college. Actually, you know what the biggest tell is? If you Google it, one of the top results is a review I wrote of it for my friend's website almost 15 years ago. How starved for results must the engine be if it's consulting me? I don't even consult me. Incidentally, please don't read it. It's quite shoddy. And that obscurity is a shame, really, because Fight Dragon is loads of fun. An honest-to-God hidden gem, which I know is a term we tend to use loosely nowadays, but considering what I just said, I think it fits here. It's not great cinema, mind you, but it's incredibly enjoyable, it oozes heart, and the schlock factor benefits immensely from a whole slate of committed actors and stuntmen. I hate to take even a second of this to hit you with the sell, but if you like what I'm doing here, then please maybe share or subscribe. I'm a slender nothing of a channel with no traction or presence, even less now after that little break, so any help would be very appreciated. And with that over, let's get to the show. It's the fuzzy 70s, and life is good. Everyone looks vaguely sweaty, the colors are deep, and men just walk around dressed like this as if it's completely okay. Who am I kidding? I'm just salty I can't pull off any of the incredibly tight shirts this show will present us with. We follow the adventures of Shiranui Ryuma, also known by his Christian name, Dragon, played by a young Yasuaki Kurata, a name you might not know offhand, but is legit a full-blown legend of the genre who has worked with some of the all-time greats like Yuen Wo-ping, Sammo Hung, and Lau Kar-lung. A known champion of justice, an all-around swell guy, who occasionally has to use his mastery of Fubuki-style karate to smash in the faces of various thugs, brigands, ne'er-do-wells, and cretins. We find him returning to Hong Kong, his second home as he calls it, following the death of his master, Fubuki-sensei. No sooner does he exit the plane that he finds a woman being accosted by some suspicious-looking black shirt man. Ryuma, his justice sense tingling, intervenes only for the woman to be kidnapped by some other hoods, led by this man and his gigantic arms. The Beefman, who will later be identified as Red Tiger, is played by Bolo Young, who the show is proud enough to feature on the front of the DVD case, but not so proud that they wouldn't bafflingly decide to use a still of him from a completely unrelated project and decade, specifically 1988's Bloodsport, where he played the murderous fight champion Chong Li opposite Jean-Claude Van Damme. This is a fucking weird box anyway. Whose arms are those? Sorry, distracted. So, after all that excitement, Ryuma goes to visit the grave of his deceased master, where he meets the bumbling Kojiro Musashi, a more recent disciple of Sensei, and Rika, daughter of the late master, who inform him that Fubuki-sensei died falling off of a cliff, the most common cause of death in densely populated metropolitan areas. Ryuma, of course, thinks this is nonsense and vows to find the truth behind his death. Meanwhile, across town, a wealthy businessman has discovered that his wife has been kidnapped and, you guessed it, said wife is the same woman who we saw abducted before. Red Tiger demands a large sum of money for the wife's return, lest he engage in more wanton pot-kicking. Good thing Ryuma and his ascot are here to set things right. A few scrapes with generic thugs, an ambush or two on a boat, a little help from that mysterious fighter from the beginning, eventually revealed to be Interpol agent Ma Jin Leung, played by Kung Fu Hustle's Bruce Leung, and we arrive at Ryuma and Tiger's showdown. Turns out he's the one who killed Fubuki-sensei at the behest of Shadow, a powerful international assassins guild who take out murderous jobs for wealth and influence and have agents in all sorts of places and stations in society, kind of like a kung fu version of Spectre from the James Bond movies. Each member has a code name which follows the format of color and animal, the animal usually relating in some way to the character or killing technique of the assassin, like the violent red tiger, the loathsome chartreuse bonobo, the agile blue cat, or the ethereal yellow starfish. Some of those I made up, others are completely real. So of course Ryuma wins and Red Tiger is defeated. Ryuma just wants to go back to Japan and chill at the orphanage he teaches at, but his interference has officially put him in the crosshairs of Shadow and its sinister Dr. Claw-esque leader, Black Jaguar, or Black Panther depending on how the translation is feeling today. So, you may wonder why I spent the past few minutes describing one episode. You see, by describing this first adventure, I've basically given you the schematic to the series as a whole. You gotta remember this was a weekly television show, likely aimed at teens and boys, so the stories had to follow kind of a formula and couldn't get too overly complex or ambitious, considering some people might be tuning in the middle or may miss a few episodes. Ryuma finds out that someone or some ones have become targets of Shadow. We're introduced to our murderer du jour. Ryuma confronts them, only for the assassin to escape somehow. The target ends up in greater danger. Ryuma shows up to save them, kills the assassin, roll credits. The show is pretty lively in general, bringing you to different countries, keeping the villains colorful and exciting, and even having the off-formula breaker episode, like one focused around Kojiro. God help us. Even the first few episodes form a sort of soft multi-episode arc, but after that, while the overarching threat of Shadow and the quest for revenge against them provide a skeleton, the episodes tend to be, well, episodic and fairly samey. You're not going to get one where Ryuma fights a narwhal or confronts drug use in China. Characterization-wise, Ryuma is a fairly likable protagonist, if tiptoeing over into boring sometimes. He's your standard good guy, champion of right, protector of the innocent, always wins in the end, and none of that makes him bad or anything, just a little dry. As for recurring characters, we have Kojiro and Rika, who end up in Japan after following Ryuma and almost getting killed by a shadow agent. Kojiro, despite my comments before, is genuinely not that bad. He's definitely meant to be the comedy sidekick archetype, and occasionally he gets real close to the line of irritation. But he never quite crosses it. He never devolves too much into shtick and may even elicit a smile every now and then. Then there's Rika, who... Okay, so Rika is not so much a character as she is a device, alternating between being concerned for Ryuma and being kidnapped to lure Ryuma. She has no impact on anything, and I would genuinely forget her if I wasn't specifically looking for multi-episode characters. There's the above-mentioned Majin Leung, who, unlike fellow name on the box Bolo, actually makes it out of the first few episodes and makes a few scattered appearances later on. He's your typical rival, but not really character, you know, the, I want to fight you, but I got a job to do. I respect you, but stay out of my way. Nothing personnel type. I mostly remember him for his absolutely unfuckwithable drip. That bright red is certainly a statement. Then there's Mr. Ogawara, a wealthy friend of Ryuma who finds himself caught up in some of the more local kerfuffles and acts as a sort of confidant and support for the gang. Let's see, who else? Well, there's also the orphans, rather adorably referred to by Ryuma as the acorns. They generally have no personality, but they're cute and highlight Ryuma's kind-hearted, all-loving nature. There's this kid, and this kid, and this kid, and that kid, and holy shit, that jump scare courtesy of Dr. Kuri, the one who runs the orphanage and also acts as a medic for Ryuma when needed. And that's really it for recurring characters, but I'm not here for the heroes, I'm here for the villains. Shadow's ranks are populated by all manner of murderous weirdo, all with their own gimmick and personality. The organization has one unbreakable rule, so as to not draw attention to themselves, all hits must appear to be either suicides or accidents. Which on its face can come off as kind of silly. Some of the crime scenes are so clearly and obviously homicides that you wonder if Dick Gumshoe is the lead detective on them, as there's absolutely no other explanation as to how they've gotten away with this for so long. But it's also pretty handy as a plot device. The no obvious killing mandate provides an effective diegetic explanation for why Shadow doesn't just send a guy with a bazooka to the orphanage while our heroes are sleeping. No, the bigger hit to their intimidation factor is that these are some clownish, cartoon-ass killers, and they very rapidly get more camp and silly as the series goes on. We start out pretty decently. Open vest enthusiast Red Tiger might be only useful at certain altitudes, but the sleazy and dirty looking purple snake's melting heart attack darts actually seem like legitimate assassination tools. So far, so good. Then we have Red Scorpion, local circus performer who, much like his namesake, uses hypnotism and a claw hand to carry out his jobs, and I think we're already starting to lose focus. And then we hit episode 4, and... Meet Blue Cat, acrobat extraordinaire and harbinger of the end. Don't misunderstand me, the show had already been campy, packed to the gills with overacting, questionable fisticuffs, and completely unironic dramatic stare-downs, a positive feast of silly. But this episode, featuring a meowing fitness guru using the cheapest rope I've ever seen to hang people, is where we take a sharp turn into schlock. And I can hear you saying, but that's just a one-off, Dave. It's not like there's an episode with a fighter who wears scuba goggles and a bright blue... Oh, look, it's Green Spider.
生まれて初めて腕を振るった気分はなんだ死体の数が一つ足りませんはい逃げられたな一人にタケ責任者は貴様だったなはいシャドウの鉄の起きてミスはしだ
You know what's even better? I don't even think he has a murder gimmick. I think he just punches people. Let's see, there's a guy in a polo sweater who whips you with wet cloth, obviously to replicate the 3,000 people a year who die in Tommy Hilfiger-related accidents. There's a dude in a rainbow bib and a brown trench coat, huge amounts of mesh shirts and sunglasses. It really does feel like after a while, half the fun of the show becomes seeing what freak or weirdo comes out of the woodwork next. The other half of the fun is, of course, the fighting. And the show certainly isn't lacking for it. There's multiple punch-ups every episode, usually thanks to the putty-esque rank-and-file lackeys of Shadow trying their damnedest to kill Ryuma, using all manner of ambush and trap, which, of course, Ryuma just main characters his way out of. The action choreography is a bit of a mixed bag. It's intricate and well executed, very kinetic, with lots of movement and jumping and taking advantage of objects in the environment. It's all very exciting. But if you look too close, you start to catch the innumerable times fists and feet are clearly not connecting with their targets, which, of course, is the way with these things. I don't expect them to be concussing each other every take, but some of these are super blatant, which makes the flying stuntmen more farcical than ferocious. A lot of this is made up for by creative staging and character movement. We'll have long shots of Ryuma taking on groups of baddies, close-up shots of clashing fists, even times where the camera will track Ryuma through the environment, the shaking of the camera adding to the oomph of each fall and kick. It all adds up to fighting that, while not the most technically proficient you'll see, is remarkably high quality for a likely not super high budget TV show. You know, this music kind of slaps too. Super familiar though. Give me a sec. Shusuke Kikuchi. That explains it. A good chunk of you just perked up, and the rest of you are wondering why I'm talking about the soundtrack to a 50-year-old action show. You might recognize some of his other work. Yep, both the original series and Z. Absolute all-time, childhood-defining soundtracks. And that's not even mentioning the other several dozen famous and not-so-famous series he's scored over the decades. Kikuchi's music has such a distinct sound. I'm not familiar enough with music terminology to try to define it, but it has a sort of jazzy Western sound, but with the mood of Japanese music, and it really shines here, both in the calmer and more story-focused moments and that incredible battle theme. It's a great soundtrack and pairs well with the equally great opening/closing theme by Masato Shimon, who primarily works on tokusatsu shows and anime and gives a really fun and energetic feel to the opening, with the melody acting as a sort of motif in the show's overall soundtrack. I should also mention this post-ending mini music video thing that rounds out each episode, featuring a somewhat somber dragon wandering the streets, and I genuinely don't know what this is. Maybe they were trying to launch Ryuma's music career, but it's there, every time. Oh, and before I forget, and because I genuinely don't know where else to put it,
高層ビルの谷間を殺人組織シャドウの企みが踊る。巨大な悪の前に完全と立ちはだかった知らぬい龍馬は
The narrator for each episode preview and recap is none other than Kenji Utsumi, a fantastic seiyuu who voiced hundreds of characters throughout his career. Breaking Boss in Casshern, Commander Red in Dragon Ball, Raccoon in Dragon Ball Z, all-time great anime antagonist Rao in Fissa North Star, to more modern fare like Major Armstrong and Coach Kamigawa in Fullmetal Alchemist and Hajime no Ippo respectively. One of the absolute goats and sorely missed.
龍馬負けるな龍馬戦えドラゴン
That's about all I can tell you without just dipping into summarizing every individual episode of the show, but I think I've made my position pretty clear. Tatakae Dragon is a great little piece of 70s cult gold. Fun almost the whole way through and slathered in that poppy, good vibes energy you can only get from a cheesy action show. Great performances, solid action, memorable villains, hilariously silly production values, an excellent soundtrack. It has pretty much everything you could ask for from a show of this kind, and it's a damn shame more people don't know about it. Maybe if this channel ever takes off, I'll be able to change that, but for now, I'll just say that the series is ludicrously cheap to get and a great way to spend a few lazy afternoons with like-minded, kung fu-loving friends. Definite recommend.
俺を探しているなら無駄だ。おい、負けるな。